I'm going to show you how to prepare this spaghetti squash. Typically, what folks will tell you to do is to take a spaghetti squash and to simply cut it in half. Well, the simply part is the hard part. So when you're preparing a spaghetti squash and you attempt to cut it in half, you know it takes a tremendous amount of effort. Not only does it take effort, it's dangerous. So I've got a super sharp chef's knife right here, but there's no point in cutting it in half because after you're done preparing it, you have cleanup and you end up with a spaghetti squash that you can't carve out all of the meat on the inside because it's not completely cooked. So let's take advantage of the fact that the spaghetti squash was actually prepared and designed to be intact. So the easiest way to prepare it is simply place it in the pan. But in order to make sure that the pan isn't burnt, you can simply spray a teeny bit of a non-stick. In this case, I have avocado oil. I'm rubbing it around to prevent it from burning. And then I'll rotate these. And then I pour a teeny tiny bit of water into the pan. And I simply put it into the oven. My oven currently right now is preheated to 425. And I'm gonna put this into the oven for about an hour. And then I'm gonna pull it out. And at the end of the hour, I'm gonna allow it to cool down. And as it cools down, it will be cooked in its entirety and you will be able to slice it in half easily, carve it out. You can save the seeds if you wanna do a toasted seed recipe and you get the maximum amount of spaghetti squash out of your product. So that's the first item that we're gonna put into the oven because it's the longest item for prep. I'm gonna bring you back over and I'm also gonna show you this other little squash. I'm gonna drop him in, but he's not gonna take as much time. So I'm gonna put him in a little bit later. I'm gonna do the exact same technique, put it directly in. Okay, we're gonna check on the squash that's in the oven. It should be just about done. It's been exactly 60 minutes. But I want to call out to you that at the very end of this video, there's actually a special segment on why choosing spaghetti squash is a great advantage if you're trying to watch your macros, watch your total calorie consumption. And it also gives you comparisons as to choose this or choose that and why. So be sure to stick around or skip to the end and catch that additional segment. Let's check on the squash. The easiest way then to check on the squash is simply to use a sharp knife. And as we pull into the oven, we can hear it crackling a little bit. The water's probably fully evaporated. I did turn these at one point halfway through, but when I put the knife in, you can see it slide right in. So as soon as you feel it slide right in, oh yeah, these are completely done. And the knife slid right in. So at this point, you can see it starting to sweat out. We're gonna pull these out and let them cool. Once they cool, I'll cut them open and I'll actually show you what they look like on the inside and I'll show you then how to prepare the dish. But you can see right now, they're too hot to touch, but if I simply poke it in, you can roll it over. When this cools down, you'll be able to get absolutely everything, 100% of the inside out, so you're able to maximize on the amount of food that you get out of this. They're beautiful, they smell great, and I'm looking forward to the end product. All right, as I mentioned, I was gonna show you how easy it is to prepare the squash after it comes out of the oven. So when I pulled it out and you saw that the knife simply just poked straight through it, then I knew it was ready to go. So I took the knife and I simply cut through each of them so that I could open up the steam and allow them to start cooling down. During that time, I cleaned up the kitchen, put items away, got things put into the fridge, and by the time I was done, these are ready to process. It's super easy. I simply used a spoon to scrape out the seeds that were in the middle, and then what I'd like to really point out too is by preparing them the way that I've described, you can see that you do actually get all of the meat that comes in the spaghetti squash. So if you've cooked spaghetti squash before and you've used the classic way, you'll know that you don't end up getting all of the meat. But if you cook it the way that I've shared in this video, then you end up getting all of the meat once it cools down. It simply peels directly out and pulls away from the skin. You can see the same as for this other squash. It simply pulls away directly from the shell. So it's easy enough at that point, once it cools down, to pull it out, pull it away from the shell, and simply store it in your glass containers. And then you just toss the shell and you're done. While the squash is in, and before I get started with the ground turkey, I actually wanted to share with you one of the reasons that I choose to use the squash. So when it comes to keeping track of your nutrition, what you put into your body really matters. And you have an option when it comes to the squash. A serving size of the squash is generally 1 cup. And for 1 cup, it's 9 carbs. So that means that you would get that much. But an average person would actually be able to eat about 2 cups of spaghetti squash, which is actually quite a bit, so you might not be able to eat quite that much. And then when you add your protein on top, and I like to then add a low sugar pasta sauce. So you can see this is a spicy heirloom, and then when I turn it to the side, you can see that the content for the sugars is pretty low, comparatively speaking, to other types of products when it comes to a sauce. But that's a great way to literally put together a low-cal but very healthy, full of vitamins and minerals as an alternative to a pasta. Now the reason that I have these other items over here is to point out to you the difference between the nutrition. So for the 18 carbohydrates, you get a full bowl of spaghetti squash. And I'm using water just to exemplify the process. Otherwise, you could have a single rice cake, or you could have 7 butter crackers, or you could have 1 piece of bread. So typically, if people were to consume each of these 1 things, you're still going to be hungry. But if you fill up on food that's full of minerals and vitamins, it will last with you longer. It'll have better benefits to your body and your health. And to be able to actually prep all your meals for the entire week, then you need to get some prep trays. And I'll show you some common prep trays that you can purchase through online retailers for a very affordable price. I have 3 options that I can share with you. So the first one is simply a round tray. It comes with a lid on top, and it stores in the fridge really well. You can stack them. I'm not as fond of the round ones as I am of the rectangular ones. The rectangular ones tend to save a lot of space in the fridge. You can move them around, and I've used the rectangular ones for years and years and years.